They are going to be on site for several hours. This activity is related to this morning's New Orleans attack, but because of the ongoing nature of the investigation, no further information can be provided. And of course, we are getting information, and as we get it, we are providing it to you. One thing, Caroline, I was looking at, which one of our managers sent us, was the amount of attacks that have happened across the world, which have to do with either being linked to ISIS or they are influenced by ISIS, which are two separate things. But
we saw the incident.
Yes.
It was very similar to this that happened in Europe recently. And we know that Times Square beefed up security because of potential attacks. And to see it play out in New Orleans, so close to home here, is just so horrific. Also, for anybody who may not have heard, the Sugar Bowl that was taking place in New Orleans tonight, well, that game has been delayed. They're not going to be playing that game until Thursday. That Sugar Bowl was between Notre Dame and Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs. So that game, in the wake of this tragedy, has been moved to Thursday, which, I mean, it just shows how large scale this was and how horrific this was, because, you know, it's New Year's Day. So these football games typically are a big part of people's day.
Huge.
And so now that is canceled. If you are a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan or a Georgia Bulldogs fan, that game has been moved to Thursday. It was going to take place in New Orleans.
well, and also close to home, Waltrip High School, they had their marching band. They were going to actually play in that bowl, and they were there in New Orleans, and they've been posting on their Instagram, the high school has, and also with HISD, saying how everybody has been accounted for, thank goodness. They were there yesterday showing how they're doing their celebrations for New Year's Eve, and of course getting prepared for the game today. And they've obviously had to raise a lot of money to go to this event, and because of the circumstances, that has been canceled. But when I had first talked to you about it, Caroline, even you were mentioning how it takes a big decision to cancel something like this because there are so many factors in play here. But again, this is something that the FBI is currently investigating right here in Houston, in our backyard, as part of the New Orleans attack that happened earlier this morning. And they say, the FBI, along with the Harris County Sheriff's Office, they're conducting that search in North Houston, where we have our Domley Keith, and we also are bringing you live images here of the actual search that is being conducted in a possible home that the suspect lived at. And this is all in connection to that deadly attack that happened now a little over 12 hours ago. So,
and I want to just make sure that our control room knows that if Domley has a new development, please bring her back up. And she's our eyes and ears right now on the scene as we continue to cover this crazy scenario that's happening here. The suspect that drove to New Orleans was a resident in Houston. He was born a U.S. citizen, apparently an Army or military veteran, took this car, this truck that he rented, drove to New Orleans at some point yesterday. Well, it was actually, this attack happened this morning, and drove that truck into a crowd of people, killing 10. So right now you're looking at a map, and this is where Domley Keith is. This is what we're showing you because the suspect, the 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, is said to have his residence right there, where you can see that little pin at Crescent Peak Drive. And this is where the FBI and the Sheriff's Department is surrounding that home. They have a whole perimeter. It looked like they were sort of evacuating some residents. There's homes, there's multiple homes in this area, and then it looks like there's some trailers nearby. So they were talking to some people and some kids and kind of getting them out of the way, it looked like a couple minutes ago. Domley's been there for quite some time, and the scene has progressively built. More law enforcement, the perimeter, the SWAT vehicles, all the things that you're seeing on our live coverage has just built up over the last couple of hours. And Domley says that they are preparing to enter the home. Of course, we don't know if there's anybody. Okay, I just got word from our producer that law enforcement is about to send a drone up.
we don't know if there's any even possible explosives.
Right, and we've seen when we cover these types of situations before, they have like robotic dogs and different things that they use to be able to detect explosives. I feel that explosives must be a big concern at this point because there were explosives discovered at the scene last night on Bourbon Street. So, I mean, it's risky, it's scary, and it's a situation that they have to take their time with, and they have to figure out a lot of elements before they can just go into the home and hopefully get some answers. But it's just a difficult scenario when at least 10 people are dead at this point and multiple others injured. You know, the last thing we want to hear is that more people lose their lives, you know, from their injuries.
I do want to make note of a tweet that, well, on X, the office of the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, he said less than an hour ago that we have been working with law enforcement and Houston Mayor John Whitmire on this issue. The New Orleans terror suspect has been living in the Houston area. He rented the truck on 12/30, so that would have been on Monday. And we have learned he was driving the rented truck in Houston before heading to New Orleans. This is an active investigation that continues to develop in both Louisiana and Texas. Please follow the FBI alert to avoid this area. Also, the FBI is asking anyone with information or video of the incident to submit them online or to call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Again, that's 1-800-CALL-FBI. Still a very active situation. We've been reporting on Domely Keith is at the scene of what could be the house of the suspect from this morning's horrible attack that is being called a terroristic attack by FBI investigators. And we know that a drone seems to be being sent above the home, possibly inside of the home. We are keeping our eyes on it with Sky Fox, and we also have our reporter Domely Keith here.
And Domely Keith, I just got word, she is talking to some neighbors right now. I don't know if they'll go on camera or not, but we'll find out soon what those neighbors have to say. If they knew this suspect, if they had any suspicions about this person. A lot of times in these cases, neighbors and people who know these people have no idea what is actually going on here. Right. Also, the New Orleans Police Department is asking anyone with information to please, please, please give them a call. That would be the same for our area here in Houston. If you do know anything, if you saw anything, if you knew anything that would help law enforcement, call the sheriff's department, report it. We could also call Crime Stoppers. Police are still searching for answers and trying to make sure that nothing like this is going to happen again. So they're not sure if there's more accomplices involved at this point and everything. So any information that you can deliver to law enforcement would be extremely helpful for them at this hour as they continue to investigate the deadly, deadly car crashing into a crowd of people. And that driver of that car is a resident here in Houston, and you are looking at law enforcement surrounding his home at this hour.
Yes, we're looking at possibly 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar's home. He is a U.S.-born U.S. Army veteran from Texas. Again, according to the FBI, we're trying to learn more information about him, where he lives, what ties he has. You're looking at a picture now of him on the left side of your screen here. We have our Domely Keith live on the location here in North Houston with what she has learned and what's going on right now. Domely.
Hey there, Rasha. Yeah, this home is surrounded by Harris County Sheriff's deputies. We're told by the FBI that FBI agents and Sheriff's deputies are here on the scene and that they will be here for several hours. We're also told that this is the home. This is where the Shamsuddin Jabbar lived, and he is the suspect who is who the FBI says ran over and killed 10 people there in New Orleans. The Harris County Sheriff's deputies, they are staging right now. We've seen K9 units out here as they prepare to go inside this house, and they're not rushing in because they don't know what's inside. We know that the suspect was said to have been found with explosives, so they're certainly not just going to rush inside this home. I also have been speaking with some I saw a group of men walk up just a little bit ago, and they are the brothers to a woman who lives inside, and they came here because they're very concerned for her. They called her for me, and I did speak with her. She said she does feel safe, and that deputies told her just to shelter in place, don't come outside. She said that there is no mandatory evacuation. She is allowed to stay inside her home, but they told her not to come outside until the scene is completely clear. And so we don't know exactly when they're going to go inside because they don't know if anybody's there waiting. They don't know if the home is rigged in any sort of way. So they have been here planning very carefully their plan to execute their plan so that they can go inside. We see deputies here with long guns. They are dressed in protective gear and helmets because they don't know what they're going to encounter. We were over on that road at that house trying to talk with neighbors, and deputies arrived and said, hey, we're going to have to push you out of here. And so we moved across the street, but then they moved us from that area also. So now we're at the back of the house, and this is here on Hugh Road at Crescent Peak Drive. It looked like some neighbors did evacuate. We saw what looked like a family. There were several children and 2 adults who approached the fence and came over and talked with a couple of deputies, and then we saw them walk out of the neighborhood. And so we're not sure if maybe the deputies are evacuating some of the residents depending on where the residents live and how close they are to the house. But that road, Crescent Peak Drive, it's a small road, and it is a cul-de-sac, and it looks like there are maybe, 8 to 10 homes on that road. But deputies are at the back of the house, as you can see. They're also in the front on that road, and they have this street here at Hugh Road completely blocked off. They're not letting anyone drive down that road, and they're saying it's certainly for everyone's safety because they just don't know what they're going to find inside that house.
All right, Damalee, and what kind of police presence are you seeing? Has it increased as the time has gone by?
It certainly has increased. When we first arrived, there were, and I'm trying to share information with our news desk of the woman who is going to talk with us and tell us what she's seeing from her vantage point. She's inside, so I'm sharing that information right now. But yeah, certainly when we first arrived, there were actually no officers here. There were a lot of cars sort of parked at the front of the entryway to the neighborhood. So we couldn't drive in, but we were walking in, trying to talk with neighbors and trying to see what we could find there at the house. But there were no deputies actually when we first arrived, and so as we were trying to talk with the residents and that type of thing, that's when deputies arrived a short time later and told us we needed to clear out that road. And a couple of deputies actually even said, wow, we can't believe they beat us here. So as more information was coming out about this man, media and law enforcement both were trying to rush and figure out what we can find out about him. I'm sorry, do you have information about?
We'll let Damalee Keith talk to some neighbors there nearby, hopefully get us a, just an idea of if people knew this man or had any contact with him, thought anything was strange. But like I said earlier, so many times in these situations, people who know you don't realize that anything like this is even possible. So if you're just joining us right now, we are continuing to cover the horrific truck attack in New Orleans in the early morning hours. 10 people lost their lives as they were celebrating the new year on Bourbon, and dozens more are injured. And law enforcement, so many people affected. The man who drove the truck into this crowd, he is dead. He is 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, and he is a resident of Houston. He's a U.S.-born citizen. He's apparently an Army veteran. He apparently did some real estate business in the area. We've been showing you some videos and some pictures of him. He died whenever there was a shootout that ensued between law enforcement and him when this attack occurred in the very early morning hours, around 2 a.m. And now what you're seeing, what we've been covering, is law enforcement here in Houston surrounding this home on Crescent Peak Drive and Hugh Road. They're asking, it seems like they're asking people who live nearby to get out of the way and maybe leave their homes. Trying to see if they can make entry into this home. They have the SWAT vehicle out there, other technology. This is the FBI and the Harris County Sheriffs. And they've been out here for quite some time. So this is a developing, very active story. We also have another crew who has headed down to New Orleans to cover the story from there. And we know that so many of you have ties to Louisiana and New Orleans here in Houston. So it's a story that not only impacts the suspect that has the man who ran his car into this crowd and is now dead with his residence here in Houston, and just so many who have close ties to people. We also do know that the Sugar Bowl will not be happening tonight. It was moved to Thursday between Notre Dame and Georgia Bulldogs. So if you were planning on watching that, that is now postponed because it was happening in New Orleans. So they have made the decision to move the game, and they're still trying to piece together what happened here, and if there's any other accomplices and people involved, if there's any other threats that may be taking place. So this is just a lot to take in, and we're watching it all unfold live here as our crews are at this scene around this person's home who has killed 10 people, and then his own life was taken after a shootout with police last night on Bourbon Street.
Yeah, he came out with.
Well, I keep saying last night, but it was in the early morning hours of New Year's Day, so it wasn't last night. It was tonight.
It's a little over 12 hours ago, still just so fresh. And authorities are still working to determine whether the deceased suspect, the driver, the killer, whatever you want to call him, had any affiliation with terrorist organizations after they found the ISIS flag on a pole on the truck trailer hitch. So we don't know if this was an ISIS attack or if it was an ISIS related attack, which are two separate things. I do also want to make note that Fox News did look at his criminal record, and he was charged with 2 minor crimes in 2002 and 2005, according to documents reviewed by Fox News Digital. And it was in 2002 that he was actually charged with misdemeanor theft in Katy, which is literally 30 miles, or 30, well, you could say 30 miles, yes, west of Houston. So also in 2005, he was charged with driving with an invalid license, and he has an active voting registration. He did in Texas, according to records reviewed by Fox Digital. And we do know that right now, investigators, FBI, Harris County Sheriff's Office, a lot of other law enforcement agencies right now at the scene here in North Houston, believed to be the home of the killer who plowed through dozens of people. And
we do have a resident who lives nearby this area here in Houston where that man's home is believed to be. That's what we're looking at. We want to bring this person in. Hi, this is Caroline and Rashi. Can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, ma'am. What's your name? Anonymous. You want to remain anonymous? I apologize. I wasn't told that. Do you live nearby this situation?
I have no idea what was going on until my husband came back from work, and he told me there's so many police, cops, cars there, FBI was there, and then we find out there's something going on in our land.
Now, we do know that they are looking into the possible home of Shamsuddin Jabbar. Do you know who he is or was?
No, never heard of him. Never heard this name in this area, to be very honest.
What are you seeing right now from your home? Are you able to stay in your home, or did you have to evacuate your home?
No, we are in our home inside.
So what are you seeing? What's happening?
Oh, we are not. We are very back of the land, so we don't see much. But I'm hearing voices of the helicopters, and I'm hearing from my brother that there's lots of cops there, FBI, and stuff like that.
To know that this possible killer lived nearby in your neighborhood, who killed possibly more than 10 people less than 24 hours ago, how does that make you feel?
I am very sad and who lost their life, and it is very shocking. I'm shaking up right now. I'm very scared.
I'm sure a lot of people are feeling the same way who live in this area. So many times we hear these horrific stories happen, and neighbors have no idea who they're living close by to.
Yes, it is. It is very saddening and also very shocking. Like this thing happening in our own area. It is just so sad.
Have you been in touch with anyone else in the community? I know that there's a mosque nearby as well.
No, no.
And you said you were talking about your brothers. Do they live nearby?
He lived nearby, but he was coming to see me today.
Okay.
But they are not letting him inside.
Okay. And we heard also that there's possibly drones being sent out as well. So what are you hearing? And I know that you said you're a little bit further back from the scene, but what all are you hearing?
The helicopter's voices hovering.
Okay. And is there anything else you'd like to tell the public?
No, I feel so sad for the people who lost their life, and I wish we can guard the people who've been doing this. And I feel to everyone to be safe on this new year. It is so horrifying that it's a new year, first day of a new year, and we've been going through this.
Well, thank you so much for being brave enough to share what you're seeing and experiencing. And I hope we get to talk with some others who live nearby. It's just such a horrific story to be covering on the first day of 2025. So we hope that you and your family stay safe. And we know that this is shocking. So thank you for chatting with us live here on Fox 26.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
If you're just joining us right now, we just heard from someone that lives in the neighborhood where FBI agents are currently going to be going into a home, possibly of the person, the killer, who has already died, but he is responsible for killing more than at least 10 people less than 24 hours ago in New Orleans after plowing a truck through dozens of people. And so we are getting more information in as this story does develop. Now, we're learning more about the killer himself, Shamsuddin Jabbar. We did just speak moments ago with someone that lives in the area saying that she's never even heard of the name, has no idea about it, and really sharing the same sentiments that a lot of people are probably sharing, which is just shocking that this is actually happening.
And there's still a lot that we don't know, but the FBI in New Orleans has said that an ISIS flag was located on the trailer hitch of the vehicle, and the FBI is working to determine the subject's potential association and affiliation to this terrorist organization. So the FBI is looking into that right now, and they're looking into weapons and potential improvised explosive devices. IEDs were located in the subject's vehicle. He took a truck that he rented off of an app and then drove it, we're hearing, to New Orleans from Houston. So there's a lot to still be figured out here. And the FBI is also saying that they are running down every single lead, including those of his known associates. So that's where these potential accomplices are coming into play. So obviously the FBI is still investigating that. And then what you're looking at here is the man who apparently ran his car into these people and killed at least 10, his home here in Houston.
Yes, and I did want to make note about the Cybertruck explosion at Trump Las Vegas Hotel. It's being treated as a possible act of terror. Now, we do know that obviously it being a Cybertruck, Elon Musk being involved possibly with the Cybertruck situation. And so he did tweet out, or on X, say, "We have now confirmed that the explosion was caused by very large fireworks and or a bomb carried in the bed of the rented Cybertruck and is unrelated to the vehicle itself. All vehicle telemetry was positive at the time of the explosion." So that is, again, in regards to what happened at the Las Vegas Hotel, the Trump Las Vegas Hotel. It was a Cybertruck explosion there. Now, I do want to also make note about from John Whitmire, our mayor, saying, quote, "Houston stands in solidarity with people of New Orleans, and our prayers are with the victims and their families following this morning's tragic and senseless act of violence. I have been in regular contact with state and local officials as well as law enforcement leadership. The FBI, as the lead agency in this federal investigation, has our full confidence and collaboration. The Houston Police Department is closely integrated with the FBI's Houston office and Harris County Sheriff's Gonzalez's team.
All right, now we want to toss it back out live to Dominique Keith, who's there trying to talk to neighbors and give us a look at what is happening as law enforcement surrounds this man's home here in Houston.
Yeah, absolutely. Law enforcement, they are still setting up and in the planning stages. They haven't gone in yet, but we are told that they will be going inside the home that's believed to belong to Shamsuddin Jabbar. He is the suspect who FBI agents said on purpose ran over and killed 10 people and injured at least a dozen others there in New Orleans. Now, this man has strong ties to Houston. In a YouTube video, he said that he's originally from Beaumont, but he says he's lived in Texas his whole life, except for 10 years he spent traveling while he was in the military. We do know he is a military veteran. The FBI also confirmed that. But then in his video, he said he has lived also in Houston for years. He is listed as a real estate agent whose real estate license expired back in 2022. But he also says that he was a business owner and says that his real estate business was located in Sugar Land on Sweetwater Boulevard. And then we also know that the vehicle that he rented was from a Turo app. It's sort of a rideshare rental program, and he rented that Ford truck that the FBI agent said he used to kill all of those people there in New Orleans. We're also told that there was a dealership in the Pasadena area that perhaps rented out that vehicle to him. When I called the man who works at that dealership, who is said to have rented the vehicle to him, he told me he didn't have any comment. So we also went there to the dealership. When I went to the dealership, they said that they were just not commenting at this time. But the Turo released a statement saying that they are heartbroken that one of their host vehicles was used in such a horrific and horrible incident and a horrible attack. And also the FBI confirms that FBI agents and Harris County Sheriff's deputies are here on Crescent Peak Drive, where Din Jabbar is said to have lived. This is in northwest Harris County on the north side of Houston, just off of Hugh Road. The FBI confirms they are here and that they're going to be here for several hours. Of course, they cannot rush into this house because they don't know what to expect when they get inside. The FBI says that this man was found with explosives, so law enforcement, they have no idea if explosives are inside this house, so they have to take every precaution they possibly can before they go inside. They are dressed in protective gear and helmets. They have long guns because they don't know if someone else is inside. I did speak with a resident who is still in the neighborhood. She lives on Crescent Peak Drive. She says she was told by by law enforcement who was there near her house not to come outside, but that she did not have to evacuate. She says she lives several homes away from the home in question, but she said at this point she was waiting for her husband to get home, and then they were possibly going to try to leave the area once her husband arrives home from work. But she was just sheltering in place, and she says just trying to stay safe. We did see a family with several children and 2 adults walk over to the fence and talk with deputies. I guess it appeared they were asking if they could leave the neighborhood, and once they talked with the deputies, they did make their way toward the exit of the neighborhood and they left. But lots of deputies in the area. They are here in SWAT vehicles. The road is completely blocked off. They're not letting anyone drive down that road. We actually were on that street on Crescent Peak Drive talking with neighbors before the deputies arrived, and that's when the deputies said, hey, you guys are going to have to move back. We don't know if it's safe. So they moved us completely off that road. And where we are now, we're at the back of the house. And there at the front entrance of Crescent Peak Drive is where they also have even more deputies staged. So there is a large staging area. There's a large perimeter that has been blocked off by law enforcement as they just work to try to safely figure out what's inside the house before they actually go inside.
Well, Well, Dominique Keith, thank you so much for that information as we continue watching law enforcement's response around the home of the killer who took the lives of 10 people celebrating the new year after driving that truck into the crowd, injuring more than 35 other people. Just a horrific scene. And we're learning new details as all of this unfolds. County Judge Lina Hidalgo tweeted that she is aware of the Harris County Sheriff's Office work assisting the FBI in its enforcement activity following the tragic attack in New Orleans. Our hearts go out to the families affected, and we are committed to assist to the greatest extent possible. Also, President Biden tweeted that he has been continuously briefed since early this morning regarding this horrific event that occurred in New Orleans. He also mentioned how the FBI is taking the lead in this investigation and the incident as an act of terror. He says that he'll continue to receive updates. He also mentioned that his heart goes out to the victims and their families who were simply trying to celebrate the holiday. There is no justification for violence of any kind, and we will not tolerate any attack of our nation's communities. So lawmakers on all the levels speaking out this hour. We also heard from President-elect Donald Trump, who addressed this situation as well. Just a lot of people weighing in this hour as these horrific details unfold.
I also wanted to say that Elon Musk, about a minute ago, said that appears likely to be an act of terrorism. Again, this is Elon Musk. Both this Cybertruck and the F-150 suicide bomb in New Orleans were rented from Turo, which perhaps they might be linked in some way. So something that they are looking at as well. And again, we are taking a live look right now. It looks like that there is a lot of activity happening as they are right now surrounding what seems to be the house of the killer. And what's interesting is that the New York Post actually put out an article. They have a reporter on the scene too. And they said how this area is mainly a lot of Muslim immigrants, and there's a trailer park. It's a rundown trailer park, and there's sheep and goats in the yard just blocks away from this local mosque. So very interesting situation. We haven't gotten a great picture of the surrounding areas, but we do know that law enforcement is strategically making their way to see what is inside of this residence, which could be of the killer. And you have to be very careful, obviously, because there have been reports of bombs in other areas, and so you have to be vigilant. And that's what they've been telling neighbors in the area to be as well.
All right, let's go out live to Domily once again, who has an update from this scene. Domily.
Yeah, there is a resident inside who's telling me that he just saw from his window somebody walk out of a house. He says he's not sure if it's the house in question, but he saw someone walk out of a house. They put handcuffs on the man and they walked him to a patrol vehicle. I did not see that, but a resident who's inside told me that's what he saw from his vantage point inside the neighborhood.
Hey, sorry, I think my mic was cut there. Domily, did you say that that neighbor said that that person walked out of the house that law enforcement is surrounding?
You know, there are. He wasn't sure if the man walked out of the house in question, but he said he saw him walk out of a house. Mm-hmm. There are several homes that are in this particular area, and there are several RVs and trailers. So I'm not exactly sure which house the man walked out of, but the resident told me he saw a man walk out of a house and that law enforcement put handcuffs on him and walked him down Crescent Peak Drive to a patrol vehicle.
Very interesting development as law enforcement appears to be trying to enter the home of this man who made this horrific attack in New Orleans. Domily, have you been able to talk to any other residents while you're out there?
Yeah, it's interesting indeed. I'm only able to speak with residents when I can sort of track down relatives who have come here to the scene to check on their relatives. And as they're coming by, I'm talking with them, and then they're calling their relatives who are inside. And so because we can't, law enforcement, they're not letting us go back over to the road. So I've only been in contact with a few people who are still inside. And yeah, that's a very interesting development. It will be interesting to know exactly what house this person came from, and if they're just being detained at this point, or if this man was actually arrested, and if he indeed was inside the house in question. There's just a lot of questions right now, and we will get those answers just as soon as we possibly can. But the residents who I'm speaking with who are inside, they're just sort of keeping me up to date on what they're seeing from their vantage point.
And we do know that the FBI in New Orleans confirmed that there was an ISIS flag that was recovered at the scene that seemed to be attached to that truck that this man drove to New Orleans and then committed this horrific attack. So there's definitely concern here for everyone's safety involved, as we don't know what's inside that home at this point and all those other explosive devices. Also, the FBI is seeking information from anybody, including photos and videos related to the attack on Bourbon Street. They're asking if you could please submit any tips to either the New Orleans FBI, Houston FBI, local law enforcement, anywhere you can submit a tip if you do know something. Now would be the time to do so. As you can see, this investigation is intense and unfolding, and officers or law enforcement, they're looking for any information that they can get as to what's happening right now.
All right, and again, we are looking live right now at investigators possibly going into what would be the killer from earlier this morning, who plowed through dozens of people. We know at least 10 are dead. There are reports that there are 15 dead. This happened around 3:15 this morning in New Orleans. But what is really astonishing is the fact that this guy possibly lived in the Houston area, and what you're looking at now is what is possibly was his residence. I mean, he was killed by police gunfire, and we have seen drones. We have heard from neighbors in the area who have done phone interviews with us. We spoke with one lady who says that she's just shocked that this is happening nearby, and we also know that she didn't know who this guy was. And we're talking about Samsudin Jabbar. And you look at his history. I mean, he worked for Deloitte. He was possibly a real estate agent, and 42 years old. All the other pictures that you see, you would just not imagine, not that there's a certain way you would imagine someone to do something horrific like this, but we're learning more information about who he was. And we do know that he was a U.S. born citizen, also had military experience. Again, plowed through groups of people, dozens of people in New Orleans on Bourbon Street around 3:15 this morning. And we are going to probably in the next couple of days, if not hours, learn who these unfortunate victims are of this possible terrorist attack. He did have a ISIS flag on his truck, the truck that he had rented, and we don't know if he has direct connection with ISIS or if this was ISIS influenced, which are two different things. But we do know that there are many still injured right now because of what he did. He drove this Ford pickup truck through the crowd on Bourbon Street, and
we keep reiterating that he is or was a U.S. born citizen, because we did hear from President-elect Trump. He put out a statement, so there was some confusion over that, but this man was a resident here in Texas. You're looking at his home right now, where law enforcement is surrounding that area and has a big perimeter blocked off, and he drove to New Orleans at some point in the last 24 hours, and around 3 in the morning ends up plowing a truck into a crowd of people, killing 10 of them. More than 35 other people are injured, and that may not even be the extent of it at this point. And now There's FBI investigations in New Orleans and right here in Houston as you're seeing this play out, as Dominique Keith has been keeping us updated. Dominique just mentioned an interesting development. Somebody walked out of a home, apparently, in this area. We're not sure if it is the home of this 42-year-old killer. We're not sure where this person came from, but according to neighbors, this person walked out, was handcuffed by law enforcement, and then taken to a law enforcement vehicle. So who is that? What was that about?
This is probably more than just a lone person doing this by himself.
Yeah, and that's why they are investigating accomplices, because so many different pieces are going on here. The explosive devices found at the scene, the ISIS flag that was found on the truck that he used to maul these 10 people, or this crowd of people. So there's a lot happening here, and we are hearing from the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and he said that they are working with law enforcement and our Houston Mayor John Whitmire on this issue. He's also saying that the New Orleans terror suspect has been living in the Houston area, as we have confirmed. We're looking at that right now. So lawmakers weighing in statewide, giving their condolences to those in Louisiana. And we're just still standing by, waiting to see if, in fact, the FBI and the Sheriff's Department will make entry into this home. If there's a person in there or not, we don't know what they'll find. And this perimeter is still blocked off. This is in North Houston on Crescent Peak Drive and Hugh Road.
Now, I did make contact with Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, who didn't want to speak on this, saying that the FBI is in full control of this investigation. And I think it's important to note that earlier, the New Orleans police chief, Ann Kirkpatrick, in a briefing said that this man was trying to run over as many people as he possibly could. She said that the driver was hell-bent on creating the carnage and the damage that he did. Weapons and potential IEDs were located in the suspect's vehicle, and other potential IEDs were located in the French Quarter. This is all according to the FBI. And investigators also found pipe bombs at the scene of that attack. And we do know that this is all a possibility of what could be found in this killer's possible home. And like Caroline was talking about, the interesting development with Dominique learning that someone in that area was taken in handcuffs. Now, why or who, or
who
maybe
is that?
for
We
a
don't know.
different situation, we're not sure. We also don't know the link between what happened at the Trump Las Vegas hotel and the Cybertruck exploding. That still hasn't officially come out on what was going on there, if there's any links to that. So a lot of questions, but unfortunately we do know that there are multiple people who are dead today, and so many others fighting for their lives because of this man plowing through these people. We are talking about the 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, U.S.-born citizen, U.S. Army veteran, and was killed by police.
And right now, according to Fox News, the FBI is reporting that they can tell us at this point that this man was an Army veteran, and the FBI believes that he was honorably discharged, and the FBI is working through this process to figure out all this information. He does have a criminal record, and Rashi was telling you a little bit about the criminal record earlier. He was charged with 2 minor crimes in 2002 and 2005, according to documents that Fox News obtained. In 2002, he was charged with misdemeanor theft in Katy, and in 2005 with driving with an invalid license. He has an active voting registration here in Texas, and he previously resided in North Carolina, where in 2012 he lived there.
And sorry, I didn't mean to
go
cut
ahead.
you off. I was going to say that we are confirming that 15 people have died because of the tragedy that happened. Now we're looking at about 14 hours ago in New Orleans on Bourbon Street, when this guy, 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, plowed a truck through dozens and dozens of people. We know many are injured, but unfortunately that death toll has risen, and we have confirmed 15 people killed by this guy, Shamsuddin Jabbar.
And this incident in New Orleans was being investigated as a terrorist attack. It's just now spanning into Houston, as this is apparently this man's home. And again, if you're just joining us, I know that we are getting close to that 5 o'clock hour. We are covering the horrific New Year's Day attack on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. The man who took a rented truck and drove it down there is a resident in Houston. Gunfire was exchanged after he plowed through the crowd with law enforcement. That's where he was killed. And now the investigation begins. And unfortunately, as Rashi just said, the death toll is now at 15 from this very early morning attack amongst people celebrating 2025.
Now, we do know, I mean, there's so many unanswered questions. So if you're just joining us now and thinking, what exactly happened? Here are the quick facts. We know 15 people are dead after 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, who's a U.S. citizen from possibly Houston, Texas, plowed his truck that he rented through dozens of people. This happened a little after 3 a.m. this morning on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. We know that 30 at least were injured, and this was on the French Quarter, in the French Quarter. One critically injured victim was identified as a student from the University of Georgia in Carolina. I do believe that we are going to be learning a lot more coming up later.
Fox 26 News at 5 starts.